Welcome to Audacity Works, a podcast inspired by and dedicated to the working artist, the creative entrepreneur, and generally, doing the damn thing. This exists on the premise that the world belongs to those who have the audacity to believe that their lives have value. This is for you. Welcome to Audacity Works. I am your host, Rachel Strickland, and this is episode number 119. And this is by request from my friend Lizzie, who I had the pleasure of meeting and performing alongside in, 2022, in Rome, Georgia. And she wrote in saying how to deal, or just not deal, with the people who don't get it. Circus, no longer wanting stability and pleasures of muggle life, wanting to train hard and achieve. I am excited to attend to this question. But first, some tiny updates. So podcasting is strange because I'm recording this on January 22nd. It snowed last night in South Carolina, and I'm looking out my window and everything is all white and shiny. It's weird. It's weird, and it scares me a little bit. I don't just dislike the cold. I have come to understand that I'm afraid of the cold. It's not what I was designed for, and that does come into play later on in the episode. What things are designed for. So I'm recording this while there's snow outside, already weird, but by the time it launches, it'll be February 5th, 2025, and I'll be in Puerto Escondido at Sweet Retreats in Mexico, co-hosting my the advanced full circle retreat with Jenny Tufts. So time is not real. And if there's something large and cultural that has happened, that you're like, why isn't she addressing that? That's why, because it hasn't happened yet. I am coming to you, the ghost of Christmas past. So as of this moment, Creatrix is open to the public. That's my retreat here on Edisto Island, South Carolina, in the spectacularly warm and mild month of May. And that's 5 nights, all meals included, in a lovingly crafted container designed to re-inspire creatives and also witches who want to learn some more magic. That's the combo. That's the overlap in the Venn diagram. I'll put that in the show notes. Let's get to the episode. So a couple of episodes I told a story about my stepmom, or ex-stepmom. I'll repeat it here briefly. This is before I moved to San Francisco to learn aerial, to learn circus arts. And I was throwing everything that I had in, which wasn't much. I was 25. And I was completely obsessed with the path that I was taking. And she seemed really like meh about it. Like, do you not approve? And she said, it's not that I don't approve, I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand why you would want to do that. And that was cool because let's flip the script on that. Do you understand why most people would want to do the things that they do? There's that wonderful quote. I don't know who said it, and frankly, I'm not going to look it up, but it is, one half the world cannot understand the pleasures of the other. I found that quote at a pretty young age. I was in high school, and I was like, at last, someone understands me. This quote is my friend. Because the things that I wanted to do were very much not what other people my age were wanting to do. They were wanting to have lots of sex with lots of people and do lots of drugs. I wanted to wear sweeping gowns and take naps in fields and stare longingly out of a stone window at the rain while reading poetry. That's what I wanted to do. Never did find anyone else in high school that wanted to do those things with me. I do now. But do you think any of my peers in high school understood the things that I wanted to do? They're like, why are you doing that? Because over here, there's sex and drugs and rock and roll. And I'm like, yes, but over here, there's none of those things. And that's better for me. It's loud over there. Also, diseases. And I was afraid of all those things. And I think that's a pretty appropriate thing to be afraid of, especially if you're 17. It doesn't mean that there was anything wrong with what they were doing. I just didn't want to do it. They didn't understand what I wanted to do. I didn't understand why they wanted to do what they wanted to do. And there's this misconception that we stop caring what our peers think about what we want and how we invest our time and energy after, the young adult life is behind us. It's not true. We are pack animals, and we want to be included in the pack. And sometimes the pack is just not doing what we think we want to do. So, Lovely and Lizzie, the short answer to your question is from how to deal or just not deal. Not deal. Hard answer. Just not to deal. Because if we try to make someone understand where we're coming from, but they don't understand the appeal in the slightest of the life that we're after, my advice is to go ahead and let them misunderstand you. Because it doesn't matter. There are lots of people that do understand and that do get it. One of my greatest champions has always been my Uncle Bradley. And there have been times in my life and in our lives where people would say, like, why are you encouraging her? Like, she should be, I don't know, getting a normal job and like saving up money or trying to marry well or whatever bullshit was coming out of their mouths. And his response to them was, because I believe in what she's doing. Because I believe in what she's doing. You don't need everyone in your life to understand this blessed unrest that drives you in this unusual path of creating and making art. You only need like one Uncle Bradley. You only need like one. And I guess from that story I just told you about high school, you can probably ascertain that by the time I was 17, I was already super used to people not understanding why I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do. And it only got more pronounced the older that I got. So I was pretty adept at dealing with it. Didn't really bother me. In fact, it made me kind of happy. It felt like I had some access to a part of myself that was like strange and unusual and beautiful. I'm like, oh, I like this thing. It's shiny. But what I didn't realize is that it will sometimes evoke a very strong reaction from some people. Perhaps you have experienced this already. I'd love to hear about it if you have. Like, truly, I would. Like, there was one time that a usually pretty nice and mild-mannered male member of my family got drunk and proceeded to lay into me about how I was making terrible choices for myself, and if I couldn't support myself or get my own health insurance, then he was going to be responsible for paying my bills, and he didn't want to, and it was such a burden, and I needed to grow up, and blah, blah, blah. And obviously I don't care about any of those things, because, like, fuck you. I do what I want. But the entitlement to the lecture infuriated me. Didn't speak for a long time. Let's fast forward 12 years later, when my entire adult life had been freelance and self-employed. Same family member got drunk and confessed to my mom that he was in awe of me. You think he said it to me? No. And it doesn't matter that he didn't. All I'm trying to illustrate by telling you this story about this family member is that when you choose to do something bold, ambitious, audacious, something that doesn't really make sense to the large majority of people, it's triggering as fuck for them. Not always, but for some people, it will be very triggering. It can trigger an immense grief in some people, and you know why. I don't have to tell you why, you know. And it's in that knowing that we can free ourselves from that suppressive feeling of resentment towards people that have put us down for our unconventional choices. Because if we can see that sometimes our unconventional choices trigger grief in someone over their lost possibilities, then it's easier at least to not resent them so much, but rather to have compassion, because it's a terrible thing to grieve lost possibility. Like, it really hurts, and maybe they're lashing out because they're in pain. Maybe they're angry because they see you making these unconventional choices because you want to make, and they didn't give themselves that opportunity, and maybe they just never had the choice to have that opportunity, and they're angry about it. and that comes across as being projected onto you. Now let's flip the script on that a little bit and say, well, what if it's not coming from grief or anger over lost opportunity? What if it's like, your mom who's just like really doesn't want you to pursue this path? Or someone else who loves you, who really truly does love you, but is not supportive over what it is that you're doing. And how do we stomach that, and how do we make peace with that and keep doing it without their support? And if that's the case, the best advice that I can give you is to try and perceive their disapproval as a misguided act of love. Stay with me, okay? Think about it this way. If a mother tells her daughter not to show skin, to wear long sleeves, not to wear short skirts, basically like slut shames her daughter, based on the environment that mother became an adult human being in, that's an act of love because she has seen what has happened. She's made observations and conclusions, and she's trying to protect her daughter just in a way that is outdated and ineffective and no longer appropriate. It doesn't make it suck any less, but it does allow us some perspective with which to view that mother and those suppressive actions with some sense of understanding. And this is very broad brushstrokes that I'm painting with, but there's always... Okay, now I really do have to look up a quote for you. This is from author Devon Price, who says, if a person's behavior doesn't make sense to you, it's because you're missing a part of their context. That applies to both the daughter and the mother. It applies to you and the person who's disapproving of you. The good news is you don't have to understand each other. Maybe their disapproval is based in their own grief or their own anger or their own fears for you because they do love you. Maybe they want you to have a stable life. They're afraid that you're not going to have the things that you need as you get older. But you're a grown-ass person and you get to decide for yourself. Here's another quote for you. A ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not what a ship is for. By John A. Shedd. I leaned heavily into this quote towards the end of my college career when my choices were scaring the shit out of everyone around me except for me. Or maybe they were scaring me, but I was going to make them anyway because that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be safe. I wanted to be alive. And as far as I can tell, I was relying on my own design and trusting my own design. And this is a little bit woo-woo, but stay with me. I don't believe that we are the authors of our own desire. I believe that it's there by design. I mean, how many times have you wanted something and wished that you didn't want it because, man, it was really inconvenient to want that? And yet, nothing you could do about it. And I've always enjoyed that perspective about using desire as a compass because I don't know where it comes from. It sure as shit doesn't come from a logical, reasonable, coordinated plan with the end goal of dying in bed at the age of 90 with lots of money and, soundly in your sleep. As far as I know, that's not the purpose of my life. So I haven't made choices to make that the end result. What I'm trying to say here is trust your own design. What were you designed for? And it's useful as well to think about this in the context of the episodes that I've released last week and the week before that about money. Like, what is this industry designed for? It's not designed to make you rich financially, which is why it takes a lot of finesse to make it work. But what is the creation of art designed to do in the human brain? What is the pursuit of achievement designed to do in a human brain? The pursuit of more strength, the pursuit of more flexibility, the pursuit of upskilling. What's the end goal? Like, what is the point? What are they designed to do? And I would encourage you to trust your own design. If you're in doubt as to whether or not this desire deserves to be pursued, I guess you can always rely on the Wiccan Creed, and harm ye none, do what ye will. Is not bad advice. So that's 15 minutes of words, my dear Lizzie, to suggest and encourage you to just let people feel the way they feel about your choices. They don't need to understand. You may want them to understand, but you don't need them to understand. This really comes full circle from the very first episode that I ever recorded, the title of which was Cheers to the Irresponsible. And maybe it could be considered irresponsible. Like, who cares? Is it your purpose in life to be responsible? Is that what you were designed for? No, you will not go quiet into that good night. You do not want to succumb to dry rot and let your desire, your passion, your talent, your tenacity fade into obscurity from disuse. You've chosen something else, and I'm fucking proud of you. For as long as you choose to pursue it, and in whatever way you choose to pursue it, there is always a way to make it work. Gonna keep this short and sweet this week, my friends, because there's snow outside, and I'm gonna go make a snowman. If you have requests for future episodes, you can reach me always on Instagram at Rachel Strickland Creative or on Patreon at Rachel Strickland Creative. This podcast is powered by Patreon, so extra special shout out to my patrons for standing with me, for supporting me, for believing in me, and for making this and so much more possible. Thank you. I could not do this without you. The best compliment you could give to me, if this was useful to you, would be to share it with someone else. Until next time, stay audacious, and don't go back to sleep.